Pops, and welcome. Saturday morning cartoons, baby. That's right. X-Men animated series. We are now in season 2, episode 1 and 2. It is the Till Death Do Us Part storyline, basically dealing with Jean and Scott coming together, right? So the last episode ended with Mr. Sinister. He's spying on them, hanging out together as Jean and Cyclops, right? And Scott proposed, and now we're going to be at the wedding. It's intercut with Wolverine. He's in a tux, but he's not at the wedding. Where is he? He's throwing down fights with Cyclops and ultimately a Cyclops Sentinel. Oh, he's in the danger room, right? He's not at the ceremony. But the ceremony is going back and forth, is intercut, and we ultimately is revealed that this priest is actually Morph, right? Bum, 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 or a zombie version of him, like Morph 2.0, right? So we have a little bit of some interactions and things like that. Jean visits Wolverine. Morph's in a hotel room struggling. So we don't know that, Morph, but he's not quite right. And then he's interacting with Mr. Sinister about, this agony and confusion. And the other subplot, which is really mostly in the first part, not episode 2, but the first part, and that's with President Kelly's being sworn in, right? So Senator Kelly's now president. He's explaining tolerance. He's talking about all these different things. He pardons Hank Beast, right? He's free to go. And then out of the blue, and we never come back to and resolve this, by the way, someone's actually dressing up like a knockoff Sabretooth, right? And a mutant, it's kind of like a fake attack, right? The news is picking up. Basically, the new X-Men are watching the news, and that's what's going to be. That's basically what's transpiring. Then you have like this scene where Magneto is sending Xavier a message to get Xavier pulled away. That's of course revealed to actually be Magneto. And then Wolverine and Gambit are playing pool with a Beast there. And these mutant hunters attack, right? So we see mutant hunters attacking like businesses and things like that. But as Wolverine, Gambit, and Beast fight back, they're caught on film, right? So it's basically going to be a propaganda hit piece against them, right? As the police roll in. Very, very good. Very, very clever. Talk about something that felt very relatable to today, even like the setup kind of stuff, right? You can't trust the media. Basically was a 1992 theme in 1993, because it would be 93. Anyway, so as I said, Morph pretends to be Magneto, which dupes Xavier. He leaves Storm in charge. And then you have this sort of like infiltration by Morph, right? Pretending to be Wolverine, pretending to be Rogue, pretending to be Storm, doing different beasts, pretending to be different things, creating chaos, confusion. And ultimately, Gambit kisses Rogue, so you have the power drain. He's passed out. She can't control what's happened. You have them headed into like a conflict. Jubilee goes off. Ultimately is kidnapped by those mutant haters. So you have all this chaos that breaks out with like with a mob, and then you have Rogue and Storm trying to fend it all off. But of course, ultimately they get the jump on Storm, right? And that's how the first part of the story pretty much ends. It's a lot of setup and a lot of chaos. And we don't really ever deal with those mutant hunters. Obviously, the guy that is there, this guy's talking all the time. His name is Creed. He's actually an offspring of Sabretooth and Mystique. So we don't really get any of that. That's just who that character actually is. So because of Morph, Beast is now like in the danger room, and Morph sneaks in and turns it all the way up. So he's probably fighting on more like the Wolverine type level. And it basically his strategy to get out of this situation and escape is just turn the danger room on itself, which I think is again showing the expertise of Beast and how you can have characters that exceed your expectations with their talents and skill sets. The show does a really good job of that. We see that in the comic books a lot, but this was very, very crucial with how the X-Men really wanted to elevate their brand and elevate all these different characters. So there would be fans of each of these different characters and not just Wolverine. Because I mean, that was a big thing at the time. So we get a little more with like the whole Mr. Sinister is really after Cyclops and Jean, and Morph is really struggling with what he remembers from the episode 1 where he was killed, and then where he is today. The mind controls, the powers and control, things like that are a problem. And then we introduce the Nasty Boys. The Nasty Boys are basically working for Mr. Sinister. They attack Scott and Jean. They get these the power dampening collars on them, right? So they're locked up and trapped. And then Wolverine is going to go save Jubilee. So you have all this backstory that's happening, and then out of the blue, Xavier just comes back, has this bizarre theory, and you're like, "What's happening?" And Wolverine's like, "No, wait, something's wrong. I smell Morph. Morph is alive." He realizes it's the professor. Morph does get away though. There's some conflict there, but they get away. And Wolverine, to be honest, it's really pretty. It really does show how well the characters are written, because even though Wolverine has major issues with Cyclops because of Jean, he's actually defending Cyclops' decision in that first episode where he said, he says, listen, Cyclops did the best he could. He made it, his decision, maybe it was wrong, but he did the best he could. It was the best way for us to get away when we ran away. We didn't check on you. He was allegedly found by Mr. Sinister sort of like in this resurrected form. That's why he's sort of like a zombie morph or Morph 2.0, and he's kind of like conflicted. So things start to go where you have Sinister interacting with Scott and Jean, explaining his master plan, having their kids can help rule the earth, that kind of thing. Morph, of course, is revealed to be the priest, and he's part of all this, and that's when the X-Men arrive, and they basically end up face off with the Nasty Boys. So it's a lot of fun action in this sort of like last bit, but it also is like the worst of these two episodes. Like there's some really cheesy moments with these fights, like and the fact that some of them could hold their own against Wolverine for so long is really, really irritating to me. Beast like jumps out of the way and just hits a tree. It's like clunk, and it's like, oh god, it was really not good. But once Sinister attacks, it gets interesting because you realize his level up is significantly more than these guys. But even though all this is happening, and Morph does hit him with the blaster, and nothing happens to Sinister, he's hurt. And it takes Scott till Scott gets free. And once Scott's free and uses the optic blast, that's when it's completely crazy, right? He's really just hurting Sinister really bad. So that's kind of how it ends, where everyone's fleeing, right? So the Nasty Boys flee and Morph flees. Sinister got away. But there's a couple of quick shots where Cyclops' art, his face in particular, is really not done right. It's really inconsistent and distracting, because things on this show are actually done really well. And there's like a couple of cells or, frames that are just like, they're out of whack. Like, I don't know what they were doing. Very inconsistent. So that was there. So this is not one of my favorite episodes or better episodes like that. And then they basically chose to do their transition, almost like the way a credit scene would be in some of today's movies, of this weird ending, which is almost like playing off what allegedly happened earlier, right? Where it was like Xavier, quote, went to go see Magneto, and you're like, well, it wasn't really Magneto, it was Morph. And it's like, well, is that what's actually happening? It's like, it doesn't really get explained, but that's pretty much what is happening, right? And it's all a setup, because Xavier is like, I sense something sinister, and there's like an avalanche, and you're like, and he says something like Magneto, you look pretty good for someone who's dying. He's like, dying? What are you talking about? So you definitely have what they alluded to earlier with Morph and Mr. Sinister, and that's where Xavier is meeting Magneto and all that, but it feels very abrupt because we haven't had anything connecting in this gap. It's been a while since that scene actually happened, and I thought to myself, will little kids get this part? Because this part was like kind of weird. Like, I mean, I guess you just kind of go along for the ride in some ways. And it is episodes like this that made me realize how much of an effort and time is spent to get Professor Xavier out of certain scenarios, because he's so powerful. These things wouldn't last. Right. There's Xavier is so powerful. You have to have him sort of like he has to be decommissioned. So like when they did that X-Men movie, that's why they have him in that, they have that, like the poison cerebro, right? So he has to be like removed from the battle plan. It wouldn't work. So this is one of those episodes where some of those things kind of come into play. But it also has, and this is the best part of the whole episode, right? When Wolverine's thrown down with the nasty boys, there's a little quick scene, and he jumps right back up. He kind of messes up, and he kind of rolls him. He pops back up, and he throws out those claws. That is the iconic shot of this series, right? Wolverine, this certain pose, claws are out. You're like, oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, so good, so good, so good, so good. You enjoying this? I'm loving my Saturday morning cartoons with you guys. I'm enjoying it a lot. So definitely be doing that. After this, Batman animated series premieres at 9:30 Eastern time every week. 9:30 X-Men Batman. For now, we're gonna keep rolling along. We may do some specials, may do some other stuff along the way, but right now we're having a good time doing this. Hope you are too. Really appreciate you guys supporting me and all this kind of thing. So let's keep it going with the positive and having some fun. Give you a little Bob Ross to go out on here. Let me pull that up here, and you guys chill. Have a good time.
I'm Ross. All I do is chill. My life is a thrill for real.